They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Jen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome to Everybody is Dead Dave, the Red Dwarf review podcast where we're making our way through every episode of the series. And we are now up to, in the middle of Series 8, what is potentially one of the most infamous episodes, Krytie TV. And as always, we have myself, Phil Hawkins, the long-term viewer of the show, who's been watching since the 90s. We have relative newbie, Martyn. Adam? I called you Adam.
Oh, that's a new one. So I've been called several things in my time.
Adam Martyn.
Yeah, I've said last time, I think, I like the term relative newbie. It's been about a year now, but compared to you, Phil, yes, I'm still very
That can be an expansion to our merch store. We should get some t-shirts
relative
with
newbie.
Relative newbie written on.
That'd be good.
And we do also occasionally have a guest reviewer on with us, and we have another returning one today. It's Miles Taylor. Hello, Miles.
Hello, Miles.
Hello, guys. How you doing? I'm very happy to be back. Thank you for inviting me back on the pod. Although, as I was saying, whether I should be thanking you for this episode, we'll see.
Well, you see, last time you were on, I think it was at least one of your favorite episodes.
Yeah, Gunmen is up there, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people. You know, it's one of the ones that hits the top of a lot of polls. But yeah, Gunman is up there. Krytie TV.
Well, yes, and I think you made a passing comment to Krytie TV in that when we were recording that podcast as potentially one of the worst, and therefore we thought it was only fair as we got you on for one of your favourites.
I know, I was kicking myself as soon as I said, it's one of my least favourites. I was like, why did you say that? Why did you say that?
And I think as the weeks have gone on, some of our other guests in between we've had on, I think we've mentioned, that there's this or I've said, there's this Krytie TV that people talk about, and they go, oh yeah, that one, good luck. And
pretty infamous as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
So the synopsis for this episode on IMDb reads: Killcrazy reprograms Kryten, and Kryten puts on Krytie TV, a pirate entertainment show for the convicts, where Kryten goes into the women's shower room and exposes the naked bodies of the female convicts, including Kachanski. You can see why just from that you can see why this has a bad rep.
My gosh, as you were reading that, Phil, honestly, I don't think I've been able to curl every part of my body. Literally my hands, my toes, just oh god.
It's such a cringy premise, isn't it?
Pretty much.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start at the beginning, as we do. We get a kind of like montage of Kryten struggling, let's just say, because he's been assigned as a woman in the prison, and he's not particularly happy with this. He's fed up. We get a little montage of him, when Kachanski's painting her toenails, he's painting his whole foot with toenail varnish. We get him taking a umbrella into the shower cubicle and reading a book and looking very bored in there, and various other things. What did you think about? What did you guys think about this initial opening of the episode?
It's really strange because honestly, like, from the off, it kind of seems like this is going to be a very dated episode. Like, the ideas that are going to be put forward are very much going to be set in that 1999 sensibility, and yeah. I'm not. I don't know. Honestly, don't know where. I think Adam. I'll let you take it from here because I'm struggling at the minute.
Obviously, I guess you two had seen this before, even though it's been some time. Like, you both have come to this, like, I guess, knowing to an extent what's coming up. For me, like, this opener was just a bit weird because obviously it's just that initial bit, showing how he's struggling, and then we go straight to Lister and Rimmer. So at first, I was like, that was just a really weird. Oh, because there's no dialogue either. It's just Kryten like moaning or moping, and then we suddenly cut away. So I was like, okay, that was a start, I guess. So I guess it was. I don't know. I wasn't thinking, oh, it's going to be one of those, like you said, Miles, quite rightly, like, you know, a dated episode. I guess I just thought that's a really weird way to start it. But I guess that's because
very
I had
disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it feels it. Yeah, it feels naturally like it should have just started with the bunk scene, as a lot of Series 8 does. So, yeah, to me it was just, I guess, before I knew what was coming, I didn't hate the whole opening thing with Kryten, but I was just a bit like, why is this here, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned the bunk scene, because we do then go into that. And I would say, apart from one very groan-worthy gag about getting the post.
I only got that second time around when I was watching it. I watched it twice in the run-up to this, and it literally took me to the second time watching it. Oh, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was... it actually made me groan out loud. Like,
it's
that
one of those.
is such a bad joke.
It's a dad joke, that.
It's such a dad joke, yeah.
But apart from that, I actually quite enjoyed the rest of that scene. I thought it was, that dynamic between Lister and Rimmer that we get in those bunk scenes. And we were just chatting just before off air about how this Series 8, kind of harkens back in some ways. In some ways, it's very different from everything else in the whole of Red Dwarf history, because of the whole prison setting, because of the whole, there's a whole crew on the ship. But in other ways, in the ways like the bunk scenes, it harkens back to that Series 1 and 2, and their just chemistry is really good.
That is the one thing I really do like about Series 8, in that it realizes that one of the great things about Red Dwarf from its initial conception was just putting those two in a room together and letting them bicker, letting them talk, letting them interact. It's one of my favorite parts about Red Dwarf, just seeing Lister and Rimmer chat, whatever it is. So you're right, it's great to recapture that dynamic from Series 1 and 2. And that is a very sitcom kind of part of Red Dwarf. So I do like that. And you're right, it is one of the nicer aspects, I think, of this run of episodes.
Yeah, I quite like the dynamic, like you've both said. I think for me, the some of the gags felt a little flat to me today. I'm not sure whether that, maybe it was just like the gags themselves I didn't take to, or...
Well, I was going to ask about one... There was one gag I was going to ask, because I wonder if it's cultural reference dependent. So because they get their actual post as well, their mail, as well as the actual physical wooden post that Lister gets, there is actually mail as well. And one of the items is a Reader's Digest Lucky Dip. Now, I did wonder, because you guys are younger than me, as I am at pains to point out. But did you guys get that? Do you know what the Reader's Digest Lucky Dip is?
I mean, I've heard of the Reader's Digest, but
because I haven't even heard of the Reader's Digest, I'll be honest. In terms of, I honestly have no clue. I just sort of took it as like one of those random competition things that.
Well, it kind of is.
Again, very dated.
It's very. That's why I mean it's kind of dated. If you didn't get one of these through the post, because the joke is everyone got one of these through the post. Literally, in the 90s, they just sent them out to anybody that they could find an address for, and they were these like kind of mini scratch card things. And I, as a like in the early 90s, as a 6, 7, 8 year old or whatever, I was actually I got excited, not realizing that actually it's a bit of a con and you don't really win what is on them and stuff like that. So it's I did wonder if like jokes like that might go over someone who's younger's head, because they don't have that cultural reference.
I do think that's quite typical of Series 8 for some reason. I do think that of all the kind of Red Dwarf series, it seems to be the one that really does... It really is tied to that time that it was made. Maybe a bit like Series 1 as well, to an extent. It kind of takes you out when you kind of go, but no one does the Reader's Digest thing anymore. Like, why would they be doing that in the far future? It really does make you kind of go, well, this doesn't... This isn't the far future. This isn't sci-fi. This doesn't feel... I'm not getting that kind of escapism from it.
Yeah. I think the one reference I did like, and I guess you could argue, it sounds quite cruel. I hope it doesn't still apply now, when they're talking about what they ordered, and because it's his guitar, and what did he? Rimmer says something like,
If I wanted to share a cell with an irritating lump of wood, I'd have moved in with an Australian soap star.
I don't know, that made me chuckle. But,
That's very topical with, of course, Neighbours being cancelled at the moment.
That is true.
Has it been like officially or are they like trying to?
I think they're trying to find alternative funding, but
Right, okay.
Channel 5's cancelled it.
Yeah.
And Channel 5 in the UK is his majority funder, I believe. Which is weird that an
I
Australian
see,
soap
yeah.
is mainly funded.
It's got
from
a
the
big
UK.
following here, though, apparently,
Yeah.
Neighbours.
It does.
So I'm told. But yeah, I'd agree with you, though, Miles. Like, series, the ones we've watched so far, the first four and then this one, I think we mentioned it in one of the episodes that there are a lot more of the time, like you said, like current, in quote marks, cultural references, which Red Dwarf, I guess, has always done, like, here and there, but it was always, like, maybe one or two a season or every... Do you know what I mean? Whereas this season, it feels like it's every episode we've got to have something that ties it, which
and it feels kind of like a bit of a whiplash, especially after series 6 and 7, which are Starbug based, you know, out in the far-flung kind of, you know, reaches of space, and suddenly we're back to cultural references, you know, within a confined setting. It just I think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't work as well, because it just feels like such a tonal kind of, wow, suddenly we're back to this. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I did like in this scene, potentially one of my funniest moments was the letter from Peterson, and specifically Lister's reaction to it.
From
Peterson. My God, that is tragic.
what's happened to him? Has he died?
Died? You think he'd write and tell you?
You're right. I'm not thinking straight. He'd be too busy with his funeral and everything, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Which is very typical Lister kind of.
Absolutely.
That I do like. I did enjoy that. I had a bit of a giggle there. Yeah.
When he gets his guitar back, we get a nice reference back to a previous episode, an older episode as well. The Om song.
The Om song.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The nice
forgot
rendition
about
of
the
the
Om
Om
song.
song, which of
Yeah.
course teenage Lister wrote back in his pub gigging days that we saw in Time Slides.
Yes.
Yeah, I liked that. I mean, although part of me did feel a bit of a kind of like, don't you try and get me nostalgic Series 8. Don't you try and pull me in by doing that.
That is
because
another
there was
thing
another
Series 8
instance
does.
later on as well of
does.
that.
It does
yeah.
that a lot, I've noticed, because they've had mentions of future echoes in episodes. We watched, it was last week, I think, they had references to future echoes, and there's been references to previous episodes almost every episode in previous series. So I think they're really trying to play on that nostalgia in the series.
It's almost like when any show gets to that age, because by this point Red Dwarf was like 10, 11 years old. It seems like when shows go that long, a lot of the time they feel like, oh, we have to make some sort of even longer ones. Obviously, like the example we probably all know is, you know, in Doctor Who. There's so many, but I guess it depends how it's done, isn't it? You could have a subtle reference where it's just said, and those who know it will go, that's a reference. But then the casual viewer, it's not necessary to know what it's from.
Yeah.
Or you'll get more
true.
obvious ones, I guess.
This one fits into that. The Om song, he's just kind of put into the episode, like he's just like talking about a song that they, you know, you don't need to know that we've heard that in an episode before to get the gag that they're doing. But it just adds that sort of extra layer for those of us that do remember it.
Yeah, it does work nicely when it's not a necessity to understand exactly why it's there. It's just a little bonus for those of us who have watched the whole thing, I suppose. Yeah. So it's nice.
Yeah. So Lister's got his guitar back, which Rimmer isn't happy about, but it doesn't have any strings.
No.
They've been confiscated as a potential suicide implement, I guess.
Yes,
So he's not particularly happy. But along with all of this other stuff that's arrived, Lister also gets a letter saying that there's going to be a review of his case.
Yes, an appeal.
An appeal.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that actually, because knowing what we know by the end of the episode, why would the appeal have come with the guitar?
Yeah.
Am I misunderstanding it?
That's a good point. Because
How is
has
Lister
he
already
appealed?
appealed about this thing
when
that
he
he
didn't
was
know
only
about
just
it?
informed about?
That's a good point.
I mean, unless there's some time travel shenanigans going on that we don't know about. But
it could also be that Red Dwarf thing of like I think we've all said before, like, you know, continuity on this show. It's just like they'll take the most minutiae continuity and stick to it, but then the big things they'll just be like, yeah, we said this, but we're not really bothered. So, but I do get what you mean when you think about it like that. As you say, when we get to the
in
end,
terms of this like contained narrative, it did feel a bit kind of like that doesn't quite add up. And I swear there was another instance of that later on, which just felt like, have the writers just kind of chucked then and thought, oh yeah, that's perfect, we'll just put that in there. Because I think originally I was watching the documentary about this episode. The story was very much just Kryten centric. Lister and Rimmer were such a small aspect that when they read it back and they were like, they're barely in this, we need to add the appeal to it. So the appeal is actually something that was added in one of the very late drafts. And knowing that, like we were saying about the opening being very disconnected to the rest of the story, that kind of makes sense in a way. Maybe the shoehorned nature of it makes sense when you consider that.
That's a really fair point, and that's kind of that. I kind of wish. I mean, we'll talk about it more as we go. But now that you've said that, I kind of wish this was fully Kryten centric now.
Exactly. Yeah. So do I. It could have been that. I think could have fleshed a lot of things out more, and as we'll talk about later on, I think it needed that in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we move on to going on a mission as the Canaries, and Killcrazy's back. I know you're a fan of Killcrazy, Adam.
I'm a big Killcrazy fan. And of course, what's his name? Max Branning from EastEnders.
Yeah.
It's just so weird because obviously he's done Max Branning for God knows how long now. And I don't watch EastEnders regularly, but when I see snippets and he's, it's like a lot of soap characters, you just see them for that character and the way they portray it. So to see him as like this lunatic, like crazy, is so funny. But he plays it really well. So yeah, it's always nice to see Killcrazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's good. And Kryten at this point is still being a bit down on the fact that he has been assigned as woman here, in the prison. And one thing that stuck out to me here is that he refers to it as being so embarrassing. Like he's embarrassed. I don't know. The way he described it seemed really like off somehow, and it was kind of like, it's almost like he wasn't saying that it's embarrassing that they got it wrong. He was almost saying like, I find it would be embarrassing. Women are embarrassing. Full stop. Which kind of felt to me anyway, a bit weird.
Yeah, it's just that the whole... I can't remember when it first got brought up. Was it Series 8 this first got brought up, I think? Oh yeah, when they get assigned to the prison. I remember thinking then, like, the way they tell that joke wasn't, I don't know what you call it, particularly like, I guess, like tasteful or maybe handled in. It doesn't come across in the best way. And this was sort of like an extension of that. Like you're saying, it's like the way Kryten's going about it, obviously as a character. But I don't know, I was just like, I just wanted it to move. I wanted the gag to move somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to stay on this, on what was going on. And sadly, I mean, we'll discuss it, but that only gets worse.
Because he mentions all the things he finds embarrassing having to do and how boring it is being assigned to be a woman in the prison. And one of the things he finds boring, which is why he took a book in the shower with him, is like going in the showers. And then he starts to describe the women in the showers.
And you know what? The minute he describes what they're doing, I was like, oh, we're doing this.
Exactly where this is going.
Yeah, it's going to be one of these episodes. So,
yeah. And the other canaries, the male canaries, are transfixed. They kind of go into a bit of a stupor just hearing this description. And when he thinks, Kryten thinks are they frozen in time or something? And then eventually Rimmer goes, no, we're just thinking about what you were saying. And then all in unison cross their legs.
Which I will admit made me like chuckle, but then I was like,
the thing about this plotline is there are some individual elements of it which are quite funny, I think. But they're embedded in a really amongst lots of other really creepy stuff. So I don't know. I just think there was possibly a better way they could have done this same storyline, but maybe refined it
in a more sensitive way.
Yeah,
just, because you're right. It just doesn't. If this was a story done now in the current kind of day and age, I really think, it would be done in a lot more of a sensitive manner. It just seems like it wasn't the right one for this time.
It's not all bad because, I mean, if you look at the episode as a whole, I think it does come down on it does quite clearly come down on the side of like, this is wrong and this is immoral. So it's got that going for it. But I think maybe they went too far, and we'll probably get into this a bit more as we go through. But in some of the stuff they did with Lister, particularly, like some of the stuff with Rimmer, kind of makes sense because of who Rimmer is. But I don't know, just some of the stuff they did with Lister in the episode, I thought possibly went too far.
It felt kind of like laddish humor, that kind of,
yeah.
It's really hard to pin down, but I just didn't like it. It was just kind of really cringeworthy in all those moments, and it all fell flat. It's a bit like when we're talking about Gunman, the joke about the Wimbledon ball girl, that gag, which was kind of very much like, oh, but it was like that gag for 30 minutes. It's almost like I can forgive something like that, and a little joke that's like, okay, that's not something we'd have nowadays, but for the whole runtime, that is the problematic aspect for me.
Yeah. I do think the fact that it's then at least Killcrazy who suggests initially that Kryten take a camera into the showers, and that it's not one of our regular crew was a good decision.
Yeah, I think so. And Killcrazy obviously is like insane, but he has that line later where he's like, I just want to see some skin, and like you said, Miles, it's that very like laddish, like very sadly, like, just seeing women as Kryten says it, I think, or someone says it, like just seeing them as sex objects, which is, again, and in something like Red Dwarf, it's like I don't want to have
it's not what this show's about.
Obviously, like it's an important thing to discuss generally, like in society, and how like people shouldn't do that. But like in a show like this, and then trying to push characters on like we just want to see. I don't know. It feels a bit. It's just
like
a bit
Cat as well. Like I expect better of you, Cat. Like I know he's shallow. I know that he's got these sensibilities, but to literally just play along with it. And Cat does nothing else in this story other than play along with Killcrazy. And it's kind of like, is that all Cat is now? Is that all he is?
It is a shame. We've mentioned throughout the whole 8 series so far that we feel a lot of the time Cat, out of like the main 4, gets like the least to do, or doesn't really have centric plots or anything. And even in this series, like he has, and obviously some of his one-liners are great and we've loved it, but like you're saying, he just doesn't get much. As I say, this is literally just, I'm going to go along with this behaviour and nothing else. And it's a shame.
It did surprise me when Rimmer is the one in that scene to object and go, no, this is voyeuristic, exploitative, it's immature. And then it was very funny when then Holly chimes in and goes, all right, what have you done with our Rimmer?
Yes.
Who are you?
That kind of calling out, that does work, because it is sort of like, going against his character.
But then immediately, like, he's like, now, just to be clear, and he reverts completely back to stereotypical Rimmer, which is fine. Again, I think that's fine for Rimmer, because that is he is the sniveling, like, he's the git, he's the one that you kind of expect this from. And it fits his character.
And Chris Barry plays it very well too.
Absolutely.
He does.
He's like, oh no, look, I just want to say I'm not against this morally, but it will impact the appeal. So that's why I don't think we should be doing it.
We have a little 50s B movie montage, like a little trailer.
Is that before or after the glass eye?
The glass eye. First, yeah.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah. I must forget about that.
So next we get a bit about the guard, the chief guard, what's his name? Ackerman, the kind of head of the prison, has had his glass eyes stolen, and basically threatens the inmates with, and says he's going to turn out the lights. Basically, an amnesty to return his eye, and somebody returns some teeth as well. It was a bit of a weird scene in the moment, I thought. Because I was like, why is this scene here?
It's that disconnect thing again, like the beginning.
And essentially, it's there to set up the fact that Ackerman is going on a date, which will play into something later on in the episode. And that's probably why the entire scene exists. but and Rimmer grasses up the culprit and gets beaten up as well.
Yeah.
For doing
Yeah.
I did like it though. I have to admit, like I know ultimately it is kind of pointless, but given that it had so little to do with the more sordid aspects of the episode, shall we say, I did kind of like it. And I think that I don't know who the actor is who plays Ackerman, but he plays the part of this kind of camp prison officer very well.
Great.
And I was in the one line that had me in stitches was his line of, how if he doesn't have one of his eyes, then he's only half lovely, which I
such a
was
good
like,
line.
now that is good humor. That is very Red Dwarf. It worked really well. That so ultimately did feel out of place, but I was there for it, I suppose.
Yeah, rather have it compared to, like you said, the more sordid aspects of what's going on. Yeah,
we've mentioned before, but he's quite a big actor in terms of he's been in lots of stuff, American stuff. He's been in like 24, the TV series. Wow. He's been in the Hobbit movies. He's been in.
He's got around.
He's in the upcoming Game of Thrones prequel series as a recurring character by the looks of it. So
if he still has his glass eye or not.
Yeah. He's been in quite a lot of stuff. His name is what's his name? His name is Graham McTavish.
Well, there you go. And I bet at conventions he still gets asked about this part he played in 1999.
Probably, yeah. Absolutely. But then that's when Kryten gets kidnapped by Killcrazy. They're on a mission and he gets distracted by some litter on the floor and then bonked over the head with a spanner. And kidnapped and reprogrammed. And then we cut to the B movie, and I was like, is this in Kryten's head?
I thought that, because it fades to white, doesn't it? When he gets jabbed or whatever. Yeah, so I thought it was like a hallucination.
Is this going to be
another
one of
Gunmen
those
of the Apocalypse situation?
Yes. Yeah.
Or one of those surreal scenes we had earlier on in the season. They had a random scene because they were in VR that they turned into claymation. So I was wondering if it was going to be another
about
really
that.
Weird scene like that.
Yeah, it's great.
Very surreal, and obviously and a reference in this to another earlier Red Dwarf moment, the killer bikini vampire girls again from Callback to Legion, another one of my favourites.
The killer bikini vampire girls obviously got a sequel because the one that's referenced here is Vampire Bikini Girls Suck Paris. So that was obviously the sequel to the original Vampire Bikini Girls.
Mm-hmm. And you gotta love all the 50s B-movie homage, like the wobbly flying saucers and the fact that the aliens are invisible because they wouldn't have had but I love that sort of, even though a lot of those 50s B-movies, granted, they are terrible. Like, if you want to just look at it as like movies, they are terrible, but they have that special watchable quality about them. Which I love as well, because another behind the scenes thing was when they were filming that sequence with the flying saucer and the little bit of string and all the people going overacting. Yeah. This was in 1998 or whenever, when Star Wars was filming The Phantom Menace, and all the VFX crew for Star Wars walked past them on the film lot they're filming it on, and they're all like, no, it's meant to look bad. We promise this is meant to look terrible. We this is a knowing parody. But of all the people to walk past when you're doing a sci-fi spoof, it's not the Star Wars VFX crew that you want walking past. If only they had the Red Dwarf model to show off to them, then they'd be impressed.
That's true. Well, that is true.
The few times they use the model in this series.
In this series.
But that B-movie is quickly interrupted by Krytie TV.
Hey, boy.
Yes. Let's So Kryten has been reprogrammed to basically be a complete git. And has started it's become we'll get later on, we find out he's basically some kind of prison entrepreneur crime lord now, but he's filming in the women's showers and putting it on for the male inmates and charging them. I did think it was a clever joke when he then went to the floor tile,
the pay-per-view thing,
and then went round with the buckets. That was
another element, though, that I was saying that there's certain elements of the plot that don't tie up. If Killcrazy was the one to have reprogrammed him, why is he surprised when Kryten is then doing a pay-per-view thing? And Killcrazy's like, "What's going on? What's going on? You were the one who did this."
Although I think my explanation for that, I think I've got a headcanon for that, which is that he just reprogrammed him to lose his morals so that he would do it. And
So it's
he
kind of out of
didn't. So he didn't
control.
give him specific instructions. He was just kind of altered his personality so that he would do it.
Mhm.
And
that
then
Killcrazy
Kryten
is
has
so
taken it a
perverse,
step
he'd pay
further
for
and
it
is
anyway.
like, yeah, I will extort money out of people as well.
I'll accept
Yeah.
that, Phil. I'll accept that.
Yeah.
And it's the whole, they do the whole everyone's stunned into silence, and Kat does like the double take, and you're like, right, okay, this is, and it just, the sad thing is for me, it's like it just goes on, doesn't it? Really, this whole, and granted, Lister and Rimmer are saying like, right, they do that whole thing of like, we're going, we're leaving, and of course they stay, and again, I think had this not been set up to be as like, I don't know what the word would be, like, I don't know if distasteful is the right word, but you know what I mean? If this hadn't been set up in the way it had, that joke might have been funnier, but I did just want them to go. Like, I was like, please just get up, leave.
Yeah.
And then they go, and then they say, oh, it's Kachansky, and then they turn around.
That was the moment when I was
and-
like, oh no, you've gone too far with that, for Lister's character
Really,
especially, because it was like, I kind of like the whole, oh, we've got to go. Like, yeah, we've got to go. Yeah, on the count of 2. 1, 2, and they're not going. And like,
Yeah.
that went on a little bit too long, but I kind of got the humor there a little bit.
Because they were very good at playing that. I think
Yeah.
Craig Charles
Yeah.
and Chris Barry knew how to play that joke. Like, and I like how they did the whole 1-2 and they didn't move. I think Chris Barry's expression was very good. The way he was totally frozen, like that is a mark of a good performer. But you're right,
Absolutely.
But then when they got to the bit where they gotten up, they were about to leave, and then they noticed that Chrissy is on there, and then they even just go and sit back down. But
Yeah, it's
Lister, I was like, that you shouldn't be doing that. I don't even think that fits with your character as established. That I don't. Yeah,
8 series in. 8 series in.
8
and
series in.
yeah.
I think
It's
it
almost
kind
feels
of...
like there's so many of that in the series. Sorry, Adam. I was
No, mate. Honestly, it's fine. You go ahead.
It just does feel like there's so much of that in Series 8 that all these characters have kind of regressed a lot. Kryten is hating on Kachansky again. And then Lister is become a lot more of his kind of Series 1 persona, and obviously Rimmer's reverted because he is the Rimmer we knew.
Rimmer has an in-plot reason.
Yeah,
but we'll let him off.
It just does feel very like everything's regressed and 8 series in, and all that build that we've had. Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, when this was going, as I said, I did want this scene to end, but I was thinking, right, like, what are they trying, like, as creatives, like the people, but what are they trying to get across with this? And I guess late 90s, like, satellite TV was becoming more common, and I know, like, we all know, don't pretend like you don't, on the satellite chat, in the packages, there's always right at the very bottom those few channels that are like XXX or add, basically stuff like that. And they're like pay-per-view or a similar thing like that. So I thought, right, are they trying to do the whole, like, commentary on that at the time, and how those, men, like, because that's who's watching it here, sort of become zombified to it, like that's as in that's all they see women as. I was thinking, is that what we're going for here? And if that's what they were, it's a very, I don't know, I think it could have just, the whole thing, like we said, could have just been orchestrated in a better way. I think we can all agree on,
because I don't think, I think they've got, like, behind it all, there is kind of a message there that this is wrong, and it's there, and I don't know, it's just kind of slightly clunkily done, maybe, or maybe it's just done because it's the way it's done is just dated so much that there would be better ways to make that point. But I don't necessarily think it's on the writers that they had any bad intentions with this episode. I don't
think anyone had any malicious intentions. I just think the execution of everything maybe wasn't as effective as it could have been, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
But then we go to, like, Kryten the pimp.
Kryten, oh god, yeah. Gold chains. He's got like a gold. Which is
good. Which is good. It's just a shame. I wish he hadn't got that through the means that he's got it.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that episode where Kryten becomes this kind of, the drug lord of the prison almost.
Yes,
but it's such a shame that that's how he's got there. It's like an element I would like to see, but it's the way we've got there is not the way that I would have liked it, really. It's a shame because Robert Llewellyn plays it so well as well.
He does, yeah.
And just the way he's kind of lounging back his kind of very casual lounge back is perfect.
Yeah, and the whole like I'll make it worth your while.
I was just
and
gonna
all,
say,
all that
yeah,
stuff.
so well done. Robert Llewellyn again proving that he has probably the best comic timing of the whole lot of them.
Yeah.
In just he knows exactly how to place that laugh and across the
he
table.
does.
Genius, yeah.
Absolutely. But Lister does tell Kochanski what has happened. And initially, her reaction was interesting because she sees the flyer and she was like, "Oh, how much did you have to pay the girls to do this?" And she doesn't think it's bad per se
until she
found out that she was involved with it, which is kind of an interesting reaction. But then again, I suppose if she thinks that he's paid them to do it, then they're doing it of their own free will, and fair enough that if that's what they want.
There is
to
a
do.
difference. Yeah,
there is a big difference.
Yeah.
It's when she finds out that actually he's doing it without anybody's permission that she gets really annoyed with Kryten, but then also really annoyed with Lister as well, because as she says, you stayed for 3 hours.
Yeah. And his excuse is a little bit poor.
Yeah.
Very, very much poor taste.
Yeah.
And as we have to do on this podcast, every time that it comes up that Lister fancies Krytie, we have to point out that she's his mum.
Technically, yes.
Because of the
Which makes
weird
this whole
time
thing a
travel.
little
Oh, I
even more
forgot about that. Thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me about that, guys. I'm never going to watch Series 7
this
ever
episode.
again.
Yeah.
I think this, just before we move on from this bit, though, I just think, like you're saying, Kochanski's reaction is that sort of she's not outraged until she finds out she's in it, because obviously, well, Kryten didn't do it with any of them, but in her mind, Kryten didn't ask her for consent, basically. And I thought this could have been, I'm not saying by any means she needed to go on like this, minute-long speech about consent, a straightforward to the, to almost to the camera sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I thought you could have had a really clever, even just a few lines that basically, I guess, further cemented the importance of consent. Yeah. But they just sort of really, she's outraged, and then it is just she's turning that anger. Do you know what I mean? I feel like
I know
maybe
exactly
we could have...
what you mean, Adam. It's like you need something to justify it, because otherwise it is just there, and it resorts to it boils down to just Kochanski's angry now. It's like, but why? Spell this out, because this is one of the instances where we need it to be spelled out clearly. Yeah. Like, this is morally wrong. Do not do this, and there's a whole issue, like you say, of consent, and it's like I think we did need one of those speeches. That's a moment where I actually think that we needed one of those there.
Yeah. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, that could have helped there, I think, just to sort of cement the reasons behind why she's annoyed, because obviously we can work that out watching.
Yeah.
Just to make the point in the episode would have been good.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think Kochanski's smarter than they're making her in this series. Like, the fact that the pogo stick thing goes straight over her head, how, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I really think Kochanski is better than the writers are giving her credit for in Series 8. She's kind of very boiled down. And I think that's another, a bit like the cat. It's kind of like they don't quite know what to do with those two characters.
Yeah, it almost feels like this Kochanski, when they brought her in Series 7, like maybe for that, it seems like for that series they had like a firm idea of how they were going to reintroduce her and what they wanted to do. And I mean, you two might know more than me, but I don't know whether the intention, I know Series 7 has the cliffhanger ending, but I don't know whether the intention was to always have Kochanski in Series 8, or maybe, to as big of a role as she does. But yeah, like you say, Miles, it seems like compared to Series 7, her trajectory as a character just isn't as solid as it was, or it doesn't feel like it is anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A bit aimless, really, yeah.
The Kryten, first of all, we get a little scene with Lister, planning on making it up to Kochanski, and he's getting sent her 2 bags of flour.
I love that.
That is quite cute.
Yeah,
that is a cute guy. Yeah.
2 bags of flour is flowers.
Yes, yeah. And that was sometimes, I think, when you hear the audience like give a full-on applause.
Yeah.
There are some times where I'm like, oh, that didn't need an applause. But that was when I was like, okay, fair, because the way the joke was set up, Craig Charles's subtle delivery, I was like,
so
okay,
innocent as well. He's so innocent in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Kryten comes back in and he's been kicked out of the female area of the prison and reclassified as a man. And but he eventually tells, I'm interested, Adam, if you thought this went on too long, because that is your recurring
My
thing.
recurring,
And it did go on for quite
I
a
was
while.
gonna say, yeah.
The revelation that Chansky is apparently dating her ex-boyfriend Tim, who I think was the chef. Was that the chef she left him for?
That rings a bell.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's mentioned in an earlier series. I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it might have been
Maybe.
that she left. I'm pretty sure it's been said before that she left him for a chef called Tim. So I think that's
Right.
him. This revelation. What I will say from my point of view is that Robert Llewellyn sold it just because of his facial expressions and his reactions. So it didn't feel too long for me because of that, but it could have been otherwise. What do you guys think?
Got you feel free, Miles. Go ahead.
Well, it's exactly like Phil said, because Adam, you've had this recurring thing of, there's always a joke somewhere, within the series, which is like, oh, that maybe went on a tiny bit too long. I mean, the whole episode feels like a joke that's gone on far too long. But this one, it really did feel like, okay, we get it. We do get it. It felt like Robert Llewellyn was kind of just improving it and just coming up with more ways of saying, you haven't heard. And it was like, we do get this joke. It's funny, but not after the 10th line, I don't think.
No,
It didn't get on well with that, unfortunately,
Yeah, I mean, predicted right. It was far too long. And for me, it was Robert Llewellyn was great, like with the physical and facial expressions, as you said. But every time, as you said, new ways of saying the same thing. Nothing was being added. It was just the same.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't heard the news about? I can't believe you've not heard. And the 2-3 times maybe, but as you said, Miles, like 9 or however many times it was. Like I was with Lister, who Craig Charles, bless him, was playing frustrated, but I was like, just like get on with it.
Tell me. Yeah.
Just bloody tell me. Yeah, no, far one of the worst offenders for me, I think, of the 8 series I've seen so far of a joke going on far too long, because there wasn't, to me at least anyway, there wasn't much substance to begin with.
But that's true. Yeah.
It wasn't like a grand punchline. It was just, oh, have you heard the news? And then it became this
time
thing.
filler. It's sort of like, oh, we need a minute, added onto this episode. We're running short. Let's just make Robert Llewellyn ask repeatedly when he's heard this news. It didn't fit very well into it, unfortunately.
That's all.
Yeah. Well, Kryten comes up with a plan to break up Kachansky and Tim. And he, Lister does point out, hold on, I thought you didn't want us to be together. And apparently Kryten's changed his mind, and now he wants them to have children so that he can iron their itty bitty clothes.
Yes.
But does he really, or is this all part of the ploy?
Yeah.
Who knows, given the revelation at the end of the episode. But the plan is to make Tim very unappealing by sabotaging his apartment when they come back after the date. Oh, yeah, Tim is an officer that's not in the prison, so apparently they can just be let out to have dates.
Yeah. Because
weird.
And also they can escape out of their cell
whenever
they
they
want
want.
these places. This is a very tight security prison, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's that
Unless
continuity
Kryten
thing
has
again.
paid off the guards, I suppose, but still, it's kind of like...
True, yeah.
Well,
but still,
it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
It's a massive stretch.
Yeah, it is a bit. So they're going to plant lots of unappealing things, like a cheese and onion sandwich in his room to give off a horrible smell. Morris Dancer Monthly, large Y fronts, Christian rock music, and some
All
pubes.
Rimmer's possessions.
Yes, all women's apart from the pubes.
No distrespect to any Morris dancers or Christians in the listener base. This is apparently stuff that
Or
supposedly
indeed
turns
Christian
people
Morris
away.
dancers
Or indeed Christian Morris
who
dancers.
wear large Y fronts.
Rock on, you rock on.
So they kind of do this like covert mission where they sneak into Lister sneaks into the apartment of this, or the dorm of the officer, and plants all this stuff, including a few things that they didn't go through in the plan. Like there's a shrimp on a lamp to more smell, a picture of a monkey, some really weird statue with a chain. very odd. But it's basically to make the whole place look very unappealing for any date that might be brought back there. And as he's leaving, we find out that Kryten is still bad Kryten. He's just broadcasting the whole thing on Krytie TV, and it's actually not Tim's room at all. In fact, Tim isn't even dating Kochanski. It's Mr. Ackerman, and he's due back with his date that was referenced earlier, and the whole point probably of that earlier scene, any minute. So now they have to go back in and tidy the room, and Rimmer is panicking as well because he wants the appeal to go through, so he rushes to help as well, and there's a big kind of rush to undo everything. So what did you guys think about this whole setup and scenario and everything?
I was going to say it feels like another instance of that joke going on a bit too long as well for me personally. Like the whole, especially with Lister going in and putting all these things in the place, it's like, what, you know, 3 or 4 things all right, but it kept on going. Yeah. And it was a bit kind of like, we do get the gist, and yeah, didn't get on too well with that. I felt that a lot of the kind of the humor that was being evoked there, particularly of the pube stuff, was just very infantile kind of humor. Yeah. Right, it did get a bit of a giggle, but it was kind of like, this feels like something that should be in The Inbetweeners or something. A very different show. Not Red Dwarf. So yeah, I don't know what you felt, Adam.
Well, similar. Amazingly, I didn't think it went on too long. Maybe it was just respite that it wasn't, thankfully, you know, Kryten filming women in the shower. But so I guess I like something different. But like you quite rightly said, Miles, the humor. I mean, this whole episode has had a lot of like that sort of infantile or like very churlish behavior that, as you quite rightly said, you would see in something like The Inbetweeners or something of that ilk. It just feels, I mean, Red Dwarf does have its moments where you have the odd like crude humor joke or like a sex joke or a gross out joke, but again, they've always been like one in an episode or every now and then. It's not been like the main drive of an episode, whereas this really felt like it was. And it doesn't, not that I'm against crude humor, but it just didn't, a lot of it didn't feel neither clever nor tasteful. And like you said, with the pubes, once you get over the initial like, haha, he's doing that, you're like, oh right, he's doing that.
He's doing that.
Yeah. Although I did like the reveal that it was Krytie. That made me chuckle, that he was still being filmed. And yeah, I didn't get that. Was it you've been Kryted? I was like, no, that's let that go,
that's
man.
Not gonna work.
Out of all the things you could have said, it's like, it reminded me in a way, and this came after Red Dwarf. Do you, Miles, you might remember, do you remember on CBBC there was that show called Prank Patrol?
I do remember Prank Patrol, yes, I do.
The reveal sort of reminded me like that.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this, Phil?
I have not, no.
Wow,
so
you're missing
Patrol,
out,
Phil. It was a good show, yeah, a lot of tension.
Yeah.
But like, the one I always remember, so like, you'd get a family in on this thing of like, right, we've got a son who, the one I remember is like, he's always on his PlayStation 2. This is how old it was, kids. He's on his PlayStation 2 like all the time. He never comes off it. He's really unsociable. So we're going to get the Prank Patrol in. And if I remember, it was people dressed as ninjas for some reason.
There was ninjas, Barney Harwood.
Yeah, it was, it was a weird time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came in this van, and in this instance, they'd like get a fake PS2. Oh, well, they get a PS2, not his, and then they'd like smash it in front of him. Quite dramatic stuff, really. And then they go, you've been pranked, and then everyone would be, you know, that sort of reveal. So it kind of reminded me of that. But hey, Red Dwarf did it first, I guess. So.
I mean, that's a whole episode of like a prank patrol in the prison.
That
would have kind of worked quite well in a way.
Yeah,
just leave out all the, you know, the sexual predator stuff and just focus on the prank stuff. I think that would have worked all right. Yeah.
I think it just made me want more of it. I sort of like, why wasn't it all like this?
But
yeah, no, the crude humor again, like the setup was funny to an extent, but yeah, maybe a bit overblown.
Yeah, well, they do manage to clear the room in time, so no further repercussions from Ackerman, thankfully. And they get back to the room. And we get another bunk scene to sort of end the episode, and it's gets the results of the appeal, and this is where we find out he's been successful. And it's where Rimmer finds out that the appeal wasn't to get them out of prison; it was to get the strings to the guitar, which, as you pointed out, Miles, makes no sense whatsoever because he did not know he hadn't got his
Yeah,
strings
yeah.
when he must have made that appeal because he got the letter at the same time as the guitar.
And
Yeah.
Rimmer had all that paperwork as well. He was like,
Yeah.
here's all the stuff we need to fill out. Surely you would have seen on that it says, not
Yeah.
we will be allowed out, we will be getting guitar strings. It's...
Yeah.
Just think...
it just-
I thought at the time, while I was
yeah.
watching it, because I actually didn't put together that inconsistency until you mentioned it. It's like,
Neither
yeah.
did I the first time around, I'll admit, no.
But I did find it a funny ending in the moment. I thought it was a funny gag to end on, apart from the fact that it now doesn't make any sense. But
so sorry.
Spoiled it a little
So
bit.
sorry.
Yeah. No, but you're right. And I mean, for me, I must admit, I didn't spot the inconsistency either till you mentioned it, Miles. But for me, the ending was like, I chuckled, but then when it you
Yeah,
get the gag.
it's a
He goes,
really
I wrote
flat-
a song.
Yeah.
Like, I want to hear the song. Like, you can't just end it there. Like, that
Yeah.
was, I don't know. For me, that ending just sort of summarized that this episode felt very, like, disjointed and very, well, we've obviously talked about the bits that we really don't like. But yeah, it just felt like this was a bit all over the place. Like, maybe they had an idea, and then, like you said, for whatever reason, things changed, but then things weren't consistent. And yeah, the ending for me, whilst I like the gag a little bit, it just made me think, well, that was 30 minutes of several things happening there, and not really the clearest of through lines, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
yeah.
Not the greatest kind of... You want at the end of Red Dwarf, you want a big kind of thigh slapping. That's a great gag to end on. Oh,
Yeah,
what a,
yeah.
But it kind of... It's just kind of Craig Charles saying, really low key, I'm going to write you a song. And then the credits roll, and it's like... And
Yeah.
even the audience kind of go...
Yeah,
It's not like a
all
big,
been like,
massive gig, everyone's uproared. It's yeah. But at least it's not anything to do with the previous
Yeah,
half of the
thank
episode.
God.
Thank
So,
God.
yeah, yes, yeah.
Now, what I want to
There's
know,
always
they don't, because they thought that Kryten had been, fixed, but when he came back, and that's how he then duped him. But he hasn't still been fixed, so is he still gonna be morally dubious?
Do you know what it puts me in the mind of? It puts me in the mind of another episode that's quite, questionable, Body Swap.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
And I know you
yes,
guys
yes.
have when you were talking about it with Billy, it wasn't talked about too favourably as well. But the whole kind of Rimmer at the end of that, he doesn't get his comeuppance at all. He is in the body of Cat and he does all that sort of stuff. Kryten, it doesn't get any sort of repercussions from this either, which kind of feels like morally... Where's the payoff?
Or
yeah.
at least, if not him, then Killcrazy, because it's not his fault if he got reprogrammed. But there's no consequences for anybody.
Like
really.
maybe Killcrazy gets pranked in some way, or maybe
Yeah.
he's the one
Yeah.
as the butt of the joke instead. It really doesn't feel like a cohesive kind of like Adam, like you were saying, it feels like this big hodgepodge that doesn't really have an aim to it. It's very aimless.
Yeah, it just feels like everything just sort of happens. And do you know what I mean? It's happening and you're like, right, okay, but then when it all ends, you're like, right, what was that all for then? And you're like, nothing, really. really. So,
Ultimately,
but
nothing.
Yeah. Yes.
There we go. Well, we do have some regular features that we usually do. So it involves picking a favourite character and picking a funniest moment. So I will have to make you pick a funniest moment from this episode, Miles, I'm afraid.
Oh, do I have to?
You do, I'm afraid. There must be something that even got you a little giggle out of you somewhere. But first of all, what was your favourite character in the episode? Can be for any reason.
For any reason whatsoever. You know what? I was going to give it to Rimmer because I thought of all of, the characters, he's kind of the one who's, reasonably funny and the least perverted as well. Although that's, that's just not a reason to give someone their favourite character position. But I think I'm going to give it to Mr. Ackerman, the prison warden.
Yeah.
I think that he got the big laugh from me in this episode. That was the funniest scene for me. So side character for me, I think is going to get it, mainly because of the fact he wasn't involved in the main plot line. But so I'll get Mr. Ackerman and whoever the actor was that we mentioned. He did a great job.
Absolutely.
What about you, Adam?
We're on the same wavelength, Miles. I've also given it to Mr. Ackerman.
Hey!
I almost, out of the mains, Kryten I did find like the funniest, but I think that's mainly Robert Llewellyn rather than like the actual. But I think it was because of like what Kryten was involved with. Like in my head, I was like, no, not his finest moment. But yeah, like you said, I think Mr. Ackerman for the performance and like the fact it wasn't to do with anything else. And I hope we see more of him. Like Killcrazy, who's gone down in my estimations now, obviously because of what what he did. But yeah, I like Ackerman. So that's 2 for Ackerman. Phil, are you making it a hat trick or?
Well, and see, I had a couple of things written down. I had Lister ? But then I put next to it, but he is probably the most dodgy in the sense of our main crew because of it's so out of character for him, and I'm most disappointed in Lister out of everyone.
I was gonna say, like, if you had these like in a detention and you're looking down the line, you go, and most of all, Lister, I'm most disappointed in you.
Yes,
I expected better.
But he also had like the lines that I found the funniest in the episode, so that's why he was like still a potential. But then I think the being disappointed in him eliminates him. So yeah, I think I'm also gonna give it to Mr. Ackerman.
Hey,
hat trick for Ackerman. I hope we get more. Well, you two know, but I hope we get more of him.
I honestly can't remember. I don't know if Phil, you remember a bit more, but
yeah,
I hope he's in it more.
Yeah.
Hope so. Big up Ackerman.
What about funniest moment then? Come on, you've got to pick something that's made you giggle a little bit.
Right. Okay. I mean, I think I'm gonna give it to. I was gonna say the initial bunk scene because it kind of brought me back to that kind of series 1 and 2 dynamic. But because the jokes in there didn't always hit the mark, I'm going to give it to Mr. Ackerman again for his glass eye scene, and particularly the line of only being half lovely.
I have a date with Miss Patricia Carling from Supplies on Saturday night. She thinks my eyes are my loveliest feature. If I go like this, I'm only half lovely!
Because that was just very good comedy. That felt like, okay, you get a point there, Red Dwarf. That's a nice one.
Point 1 redeemed. Yeah,
nice.
Our sound. I'm gonna give for me it's the 2 bags of flour gag because that legitimately did make me laugh, and as I said, I thought the applause was good because of the delivery. So very simple joke, but I liked it.
Chris found out about the shower thing. She went ballistic. Just a little present to say sorry.
A bag of flour.
No, 2 bags. I'm in the tank, in the middle of deep space. I can't just get on the blower to interflora, Flowers.
And it was a breath of fresh air compared to everything else that was going on. So, yeah, for me, it's the 2 bags of flour. What about you, Phil?
For me, it's Lister's line or couple of lines when he gets the letter from Peterson and his reaction to that and thinking that Peterson is dead.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, something that is typically Lister, unlike a lot of things in this episode.
Yeah, so that was my funniest moment. Right, so we've now got a marking out of 10 scutters. Is this going to end up as our lowest ranked episode? Because I have a feeling it's going to be down there, but is it going to be? Is it going to be worse than Body Swap? That's the question. I can't remember what we gave Body Swap. But
I think Body Swap was a mix because we did that with Billy, didn't we?
Yeah,
I think that was a mix of 4s and 5s, if my memory
possibly
kind of the middle range mark,
middle to lower. Yeah.
So, Miles.
I'm taking this. I'm starting this. Okay. Okay. Well, look. The thing I always love about Red Dwarf that I find so ingenious is that it takes, they take a bizarre sci-fi concept, like a backwards reality, DNA cloning, Western VR, all these great concepts, and then they make it funny. They do something really clever with it. Krytie TV has none of that. It's literally sordid nonsense. I can't be any kinder to it, and I know I sound like so cynical in this episode, but I just can't give it anything more than that. I started it going, surely it can't be as bad as I remember it being, but it kind of was. So yeah, I'm unfortunately gonna give it. Should I be generous? I don't know. I'm gonna give it 1 scutter. I'm so sorry.
we've got a one
so
Scott.
sorry.
Oh.
I think that one has just been because of Mr. Ackerman. I'll be very honest. Had that not been there, we might have been in a
saving
really
grace.
dire situation.
Oh,
This
dear.
really
yeah.
is your worst episode of Red Dwarf, isn't it?
I honestly, I mean, I've not watched the rest of Series 8 for since I first watched it as well. I've only watched Series 7 and 8 once through. So there might be something there. There might be something in the Dave era that I've not seen yet that I don't like as well. But yeah, from the stuff that I've really delved into and had to sit down and watch. Thanks guys for making me watch this. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it just wasn't my cup of tea, unfortunately. Yeah. So,
Okay,
there we
Adam.
go.
Well, I've given it a little bit higher than a 1. I thought long and hard. Normally, what I've said before is like I'll go with whatever my gut says. When you finish something and your gut says that was a something out of 10. I like to try and go with that, but I think my gut on this one occasion, they say your gut's right 9 out of 10 times. I think this was because my gut was saying about like 4 or 5 out of 10. But then when I sat back and I was like, I always read my notes back after I finish it, and I was like, this isn't a 4 or a 5 really. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 10.
Okay.
Mr. Ackerman, like we said, there were some good gags. There were few and far between, but they were there, some of them. And some of the dynamic stuff that wasn't the little of it that wasn't perverse some of it was really funny. But yeah, I think that's definitely my lowest rated one so far, Phil, if memory serves.
I think it definitely is. Yeah.
I gave Body Swap a 4 or a 5, so yeah, 3 out of 10. Sorry, Krytie. As we've said, it just felt like so many things were going on, and they couldn't pick what they wanted to do, and the thing they lent most towards was arguably done the worst. So yeah, shame they couldn't have done something else with it. But hey, I guess you have duds in every series, don't you?
Yeah.
Can't all be perfect.
Yeah.
But what about you, Phil?
Well, you see, I think I'm going to go slightly against the grain here.
Okay.
Not as much as it's not extreme or anything. I just think I liked it a little. It sounds like I liked it a little bit more than you. I actually was quite, unlike you, Mars. I was a little bit surprised that I didn't dislike it more because my memory of it was worse than the experience of watching it this time. So it's not good by any means, but I definitely don't think it was anywhere near a 1. There were mainly because
I was being harsh. There
were some elements in it that I did enjoy and I found funny. Mainly the bunk scene at the beginning I really liked. I actually quite liked the whole race to frame the room and then to unframe the room, so that about the date stuff. Basically anything that wasn't the shower bits. And I think my memory of it being really, really bad was that was more of it. I mean, it's a significant amount of it, but it's not all of it. And
sure,
I think there's enough in there to claw it back a little bit in my estimations from what my memory of it was. Not much, but a little bit. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
Oh, interesting. So is that higher than Body Swap?
You know what? I can't remember.
I
can't remember what I ranked Body Swap.
I think out of the 3 of us, I think Billy gave it the lowest.
Right.
I think we only gave it we were all, I think we were about 4 5s, all of us.
Yeah,
so.
I think, it was, I think I might have given it a 5 or a 5.5. So it was, I think this is either equally bottom or actually bottom, but only by half a point. One of the two.
Well, there's a question, Phil. Which one would you rather watch if you were forced to? Body Swap or Krytie TV?
That's a good question, because I just didn't find... Body Swap had nothing offensive. Well, no, it did. It did. Rimmer's actions in that were a little bit offensive, but it had nothing like that. I'm majorly it just wasn't very funny.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Whereas this has more laughs in it than Body Swap did, from my point of view.
Sure,
they're just not about the laughs don't come from the main plot in this. So I don't know.
Would you be the same, Miles? Would you choose Body Swap over?
I think I would, because I just love Series 3 to Series 6 so much that I can forgive it, because the rest around it is kind of kind of works.
Yeah.
And there is some good stuff in Body Swap. There is, I particularly like the whole, when it seems like Rimmer's lost Lister's arm, and he says, the whole "I've lost your watch too," which I just think is just a great, such a great line in that instance. Another kind of really Red Dwarf thing. But yeah, so I'd go for Body Swap over Krytie TV. Yeah, definitely. I think that wouldn't get the one scutter. Yeah,
fair enough. Well, there you go. What do you guys at home think of this episode? What do you think of Krytie TV? If you're head over to the YouTube version of this podcast, you can leave your comments below, or you can let us know on Twitter at or Dead Dave Pod, which is our Twitter account. Thank you very much for joining us again, Miles. Sorry.
Thank you, guys. Don't worry. It's been, it's been worth it to chat again with you guys, definitely.
Oh, bless you, man.
And in a way, I kind of appreciate the episode a little bit more from just chatting through with the two of you. So thank you for that.
That's right.
But yeah, I won't be watching Krytie TV ever again.
It'll definitely skip on your next marathon through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on the internet? 'Cause you're a YouTuber, aren't you? So
yeah. You can find me on YouTube, Tailored Vision. That's Taylor _D Vision. I make it very hard for people, don't worry. And then you can also find me on Twitter at Tailored Vision as well. So follow me for ramblings on mainly Doctor Who, but other geeky things as well, I'm sure. So yeah.
Excellent. And Adam, do you want to plug your stuff?
Sure. So on YouTube, it's Adam Martyn with a Y. That's being half Welsh for you. Have to embrace the heritage somewhere. But you can find me on YouTube. I make videos on all sorts of things. Recently about like TV history or events in TV. Quite into that sort of stuff. Anything like 20th century, you'll probably like it. And on Twitter, just Adam Martyn AMTV for daily ramblings about all sorts here and there. But that's me. What about you, Phil?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is just Philip Hawkins. Again, pretty much like talk about Doctor Who a lot, and also other geeky pop culture like Star Trek, the MCU. This podcast goes up there, all sorts of things like that. And you can find me on Twitter at Culture Filter, with filter spelt PHIL, because my name is Phil.
That is true.
And there we go. That's another episode down. We'll be back next week for Pete Part 1. So see you then. Goodbye.
See you later,
guys. Bye.